So, Claire, in terms of structure, and for those just sort of tuning in, I'm going to hand over the reins to you. Feel free to sort of chime back at any sort of time. Everyone will be able to see the screen that you're sharing, and I will take note of any of the sort of questions that come up in the chat, and we'll go from there. Yeah?
Good. All right.
Okay.
I will take it away.
Right. Bear with me while I just do this. And there we go. All over to you, Claire.
All right. So hello, everybody. So I'm going to talk to you today about the art of good leadership. But first of all, I thought it was important just to tell you a little bit about who I am. Maybe some of you I know, some of you I've worked with in the past. But for those of you who don't know me, this is who I am. So this is me at 3. I'm a farmer's daughter. So this is where I grew up. I am a single mother of a lovely boy called Elliot, who is 11, although doesn't quite look it in that picture. Obviously, that was from a few years ago. And family is very important to me, and that is my family that you can see there on the right. So what do I do, and what do I love to do? Well, clearly in the 1980s, I liked to match my shirt with the sofa.
I don't think we should skip on too quickly here, Claire. We should allow everybody to admire.
Yes, my matching shirt. Yeah. And I'm more worried actually about the sofa, to be honest with you, that we had a denim sofa in our living room, which now I think about it, I question. I love to do sport. This is me outside of Soul Cycle. So when I lived in America, I was a big Soul Cyclist, which is a sort of spiritual cycling class in very, very dark environment. We get a lot of energy from the riders next to you, and you're basically dancing to the music. I'm a very keen baker. This is some creations from a Halloween a little bit ago. And I think why I do sport is because I like to eat my baking creations. And lastly, but now it's no secret, I am a secret Taylor Swift fan. Actually, no, I'm not. I proclaim my love for Tay-Tay. This was Elliot's first ever concert. I think he'll never forgive me when he's older and he has to tell people his first ever concert was Taylor Swift. But he also was a big fan at one point. So that was in America. We had the chance to go and see her. So lovely.
So aspirations for Bake Off, Claire?
Oh, I'd quite like to be honest with you. Yeah, I'd do it. I'd be down.
Is there a German version of Bake Off?
Do you know? I'm not sure. I'm sure there is, because I would imagine that was sold to many, many countries. Because it's such a good format. I don't know. My German's a bit poor, so I'm not sure I could do the German one. But yes, maybe one day the Great British Bake Off will be my calling.
You heard it here first.
Alrighty, so let me talk to you a little bit about what I've done in my career, just to give you some sense and context of as to my work journey and professional journey. So I started Adidas. I worked there for 20 years. So I started in 97, which is when I first met Miles, as he just mentioned. And we actually started as sales training and retail support executives. Both of us were doing the same job, which is how we came to connect. And that was really a job in terms of understanding product, training people on products and technologies, visual merchandising, and a real sales support role, for want of a better term. I then moved to head up women's training. And in between times, whilst I was working at Adidas UK, I then moved to the global headquarters in Germany, and I was based there for 16 years. And now you can ask me why my German is not good enough, or maybe that's for another conversation.
we have no idea if your German's not good enough. I'm sure
it's not business good enough. Anyway, so I took the role of head of training. So actually a lot of these roles were sort of over a period of sort of 6 years, the last one for 2. But I do believe there's sort of like a 6-7 year cycle in most of our lives where we go through a change curve every 7 years. And I think that's kind of what's happened to me during my career. But anyway, so I started as head of women's training, strategy, vision, cross-functional leadership, brand management, communications. I think my best time in my career I have two best times in my career, actually, and I'll come to the second one later on, was Adidas Neo. And there I had the opportunity to build a brand from scratch. So blank piece of paper. My boss at the time said, fast fashion, teenagers, girls, and that was kind of my brief. So really building something from scratch was a wonderful opportunity. Strategy, vision, structure, looking after design, development, and I was really end-to-end responsible, from operations, building new processes, practices, and everything we learned at Adidas Neo was taken into the wider brand to inform how we create products, speed programs, the way we go to market. So a real learning. And obviously, I'd never built a business at the time. So really having to go from the ground up to understand, how to communicate to a wider audience, even bringing in investors. So it really was a massive learning for me in my career.
And I think, Claire, doing that with the backing of a big brand is very special, right?
Yes, I mean, of course, going into it, we're a startup within an Adidas environment means you've got, the financial support and backing that you don't have when you're a startup. So yes, it was a wonderful opportunity to have that big support network from the Adidas brand, as we were allowed to go and test and try and really understand how to take risks. And learn from your failures. And actually, I think through leadership, learning from your failures is probably where you get your biggest learning, because if everything works perfectly, you just carry on as you are. But it's when you get something that breaks or doesn't work, it's then you have to really go and learn why, how, what would I do differently? And I think that's probably where I learned the whole risk failure process of leadership. I then moved on to continue with Neo, but then I also took on the Y3 and Porsche Design Sport. So that's Y3 is a collaboration we do with Yohji Yamamoto. I still say we because it's so ingrained in me. And Porsche Design Sport, which was a collection that was targeting more sort of adult male, like yourself, Miles, I would say.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
So again, there it was, a lot about strategy, vision, but also here I found that there was, a moment where there was looking at, how we rebuild some of these brands. Actually, Porsche Design Sport, we sadly decided to close the business. And that was the reason for that, was it was not paying into the overarching brand strategy. Now, that's a really difficult decision to have to make. But again, in leadership positions, those decisions are part of your day-to-day job. And it's really understanding why you need to do something, what you're going to do, and how you're going to do it. And of course, when there's people concerned, it's with a lot of empathy and care. Y3 was a little bit of a turnaround business where, the business hadn't been providing the profit that it should have done. So, really looking and getting under the bonnet of that business and understanding how we can bring it to a profitable solution. My last role at Adidas was concept to consumer, where I moved into more of a horizontal role, where I was managing through the organization, providing global merchandising frameworks in terms of how much, when, and what products we were creating, looking at the end-to-end consumer journey, building retail environments as part of that consumer journey, and understanding the experiences and the storytelling we were wanting to tell within those retail environments. We were responsible for building engineering, supply chain, visual merchandising, go-to-market strategies and execution, and of course, really embedding data analytics and insights, which was almost the first time we'd really started to look at data and analytics as something as important as we all know it is today. So then what did I do? Well, I hopped and skipped and jumped over to California. So my son and I schlepped over to Cupertino to take, and I didn't, he didn't, sorry, took the job of managing director of Channel. And there my responsibility was really to work in all spaces outside of own retail. So wholesale, franchise, .com, marketplaces. And my responsibility was, again, understanding the end-to-end consumer journey, in-store experiences, but also online experiences as well. So developing that customer journey in both an on and offline environment. So new retail fixtures and fittings, new Amazon.com as an example, and new online experiences as well. And we're also responsible for partner relationships and partner marketing. So how we show up as a brand outside of the own retail business. So I did that for 2.5 years, and then I had a wonderful opportunity, and this is where my second sort of highlight in my career came. And I moved my son and I back to Berlin, back to Germany, sorry, but this time to Berlin, because obviously I'd been in Nuremberg prior to that, to become the CEO of Amorelie. So Amorelie is a sexual wellness brand here in Germany and operating in the DACH region and France and Belgium as well. So that was a real opportunity for me to go and try and test all of the skills and knowledge I'd learned in leadership, in strategic thinking, in business development, but also culture, people, to really, test my guns at, can I do this? There was some sense of transformation within Amorelie, where it was a startup. It'd been around for 7 years, but really needing to move into that scale up and how do we transform the business. And I mean, what a joy to be able to talk on a daily basis about, enabling sexually fulfilled humans everywhere.
I should jump in here and say that this isn't a family show, so you can say whatever you like, Claire.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it was just, it was just the most wonderful experience. I mean, the learning was immense, not just from a professional perspective, but also a complete sector that I hadn't really, got a great knowledge of. Mm. So really understanding, and we did a lot of resetting in the business in terms of, our mission, our purpose, why we all get out of bed in the morning, which I think is critical for every company, really what drives us all to go to work, and thus your customers to want to be part of your company. So that was a huge learning and a wonderful joy.
And I think, Claire, that certainly from my Adidas days, and I'm sure it was the same with Apple, when you've worked in those large organizations, all of these things like the values, the tone of voice, the whys, they're drilled into you. And
yes.
And being able to impart that into a company that perhaps hasn't got that type of culture can make a real big difference.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, I work very much in the transformational space today in terms of supporting companies in their transformation, often from startup to scale up. And what you do see, Miles, is that, understanding that purpose, vision and mission as to, and the North Star is often missing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, I know. I think it does sort of tie in with this because I'm sure you'll mention this, but part of being a leader is knowing where you're leading people to, right?
Exactly.
So, this is not my show. This is your show. And what I'm gonna say before you crack into the main bit: 22 people watching us live, and it is worldwide, right? We have got. Nice. We've got Philip Holmes on the call. We've got an ex-colleague, Katerina. She's saying hi.
Hello, Katerina.
Noreen saying hi.
Oh, hello, Noreen. We work together at Amorelie. Hello,
yeah, Tom's in London. Fraser's in the UK. Lisa Kerr. She says,
hello.
Neo was her best time at Adidas.
Oh, yes. Hello, Lisa.
And Susanna. That looks like it's spelt the German way, so I'm going to suggest that she's in Germany, and she agrees. It was her best experience as well.
Hello, lovely people.
Lots of ex-colleagues supporting you today, Claire.
Nice.
If any of you watching have got questions, please pop them in the chat. We will definitely get round to them at the end. Thank you.
For sure. All right then. So why is leadership so important? Because leadership drives culture. Culture drives behavior, and behavior drives strategy. So it is all interlinked. Now, what I do want to say is, because I think as a young professional, we all go, my next step is leading people. My next step is leading people. And I think what's really important is that we recognize in ourselves that sometimes we aren't built for leadership, and that is absolutely okay. And something I liked very much about Apple and actually something that we implemented also at Amorelie was sort of there is an expert path or an individual contributor path and then the leadership path, because I do think as we go up, rise up the ladder or the ranks, as it were, we go, okay, my next step is leading people as just a natural consequence of moving up a ladder. But I do think there's sometimes a reflection to say, really, do I want to lead people? And is it something that's good for me to lead people? And I don't always think we reflect on that before we jump in it, and then we're like, oh my goodness, this is quite a big thing, leadership. So just wanted to ground us all in the fact that leadership really drives success effectively, or good leadership drives success. Bad leadership, maybe not so much. Alrighty. So what I think is really important to understand is one does not manage people. Our task is to lead people, and the goal is to make productive the specific strengths, because we all have weaknesses, and knowledge of every individual. So this is a little quote from Mr. Drucker.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Claire. I think a lot of people, they want to create this sort of positive culture, and how do you go about doing that? And you, as a leader, you can't. It's the people that create the culture, right?
Yes, indeed. You have to live it and you have to really lead through it, but you cannot say, what do I want this culture to be? Because it's a feeling, a culture. Yeah. So I see management and leadership as two different things. And I think this is where we do start to get a bit complicated, because when we go into leadership roles, we go, okay, I've got to create a plan, a vision, a purpose, a culture. Actually, no. Management is about creating a plan, a vision, a purpose, and then thus the culture. Mm-hmm. And in creating a plan, to your point that you said, Miles, earlier, is, it enables everybody to know where they're heading and gives them the safety, the security, and the knowledge of, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing on a daily basis? And then we move over to leadership, is where we're going to focus today. Is leadership is really inspiring and motivating those around you to achieve their greatness. So this does require, ego to be left at the front door, sometimes your pride as well. But what I do see is the criticality of both of these things, because these things combined really enable you to attract and retain talent. They know where they're going, they're inspired and motivated to achieve their greatness, to learn and develop and grow. So I just wanted to have one moment on the why for a moment, and starting the journey. And I think what's really important, and I think we very much run into the how and the what very quickly, because they're a lot easier. What do I need to do, and how am I going to, the actions that I'm going to take? But first of all, starting out with your why, your purpose, and the reason you do what you do. I think this is equally important for a company in terms of the purpose of a company, but also I do think it's important to take a moment to understand your own personal why. And I think sometimes we forget that. We just run into, okay, how am I going to get there? What have I got to do it? But actually understanding that why you get out of bed in the morning. I know I want to inspire and motivate people to achieve their greatness. So that's why I do what I do, be it coaching, be it consulting. And I think that the journey I've been on through leadership has been very much about supporting other humans in finding their joy. So now let's look at the art of good leadership. So all of the words on the left, really, with good leadership, all of these things come: behaviors, culture, performance, collaboration, creativity. I mean, they're just words on a page, so they need to be worked at. But through the art of good leadership, these things very naturally come. So it's critical to be authentic, to be your human self. I think if you are trying to be something you're not, the pressure that takes in you, so you have a personality at work and a personality at home, is terribly training. So being authentic and human is critical. Acting with integrity is also very important. Taking responsibility. So as a leader, you need to take care of those in your charge and take responsibility for those people, but also take responsibility for the failures, the learnings, the missteps that you make, the pivots that you might have to take. Be truthful. I have no idea is an okay statement to make, but you know what? We're going to go and find out together. That's all fine. You do not have to have all the answers.
That's a big one, I think, Claire.
Huge.
You know, being able to sort of say, look, I don't know, but I'm going to find out, and I am going to get back to you. And I think people respect that, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's really, really important. And I do think as we go into leadership, we go, oh, no, I need to know everything. But no, you don't. Because if you do try to know everything, you can micromanage, you can really sit on people's shoulders. And that also doesn't give them the sense of empowerment, of opportunity to go and learn and grow and find out for themselves. Also to say, I don't know, but what do you think? Is also a great option, because you're asking for people's opinions and they're learning and growing as you do that. Be courageous. So, you know, take risks. It's scary sometimes, but, you know, throwing caution to the wind and going, we're going to try. You may fail, but if you don't try, you will never, ever know.
Yeah,
And
it's such a big one, I think, Claire. I think for all managers, you know, the fear of fail. Well, for people in general, right? No one likes to fail, but
of course,
you know, we only really learn from our failures.
yes,
And I think it's always one of those things where you make the right decision at the time with everything that's available to you.
Exactly.
Hindsight, yeah, wonderful. It may turn out it was the wrong decision, but all you can do is your best at the time with what's available to you.
Indeed. And I think there goes with the acknowledge the failure thing. And I what I do, which is the next point, but what I do see, Miles, is that often, you know, companies have a you know, a fear of failure, and particularly when you're in a scale-up environment or a startup where, you know, budgets are tight, you can't really afford to fail. You almost then don't take the risks that perhaps you should take to get you to the next step because of the fear of failure and the cost to the business. But you're absolutely right. The biggest failings I've had have been my best learnings, without a doubt.
Agreed.
I think being persistent. So, you know, try again, you know, pivot, turn, try, but be persistent. Just don't give up on the first try, because there is solutions, which leads me to the next point, is about creating solutions. I think as a leader, we need to come with, you know, we need to come, with challenges, but also here's some opportunity for solutions, or I see this as a challenge. What do you think? What solutions can we bring to this challenge? Listen and care. And our friend said to me once, you have 2 ears and a mouth, use them in that ratio.
Yeah.
And I've never forgotten that. So do listen and care. You know, listening shows care, and be kind. And I think, you know, it amazes me. And I thought about this yesterday when I was walking my dog. You know, I think kindness is so, we all want to be treated with kindness. I don't think anyone gets up in the morning and goes, I want everyone to treat me really shittily today. Yet we don't always treat people with kindness, or we're not treated sometimes with kindness. Now, there's reasons for that, which I can come to in behaviors in just a bit. But I think ultimately, we all want to be treated with kindness and love, and we all want to feel loved and safe. So I think being kind and understanding is really, really important. And sometimes, you know, we all need to take a moment just to go, was I really kind to that person? And sometimes it's behaviors that lead us not to be, and our own personal challenges that we've got going on inside of us. But being kind, I think, is critically important. Delegate liberally. So it goes back to being courageous, to not having all the answers. You know, your team will learn and grow, you will empower them, and they will thank you for it. You do not have to do everything yourself. Because then you are a control freak, you are holding everything to your own, and people are not learning and growing and don't feel they have the space to learn and grow.
Because as a leader, you need to be leading, right?
Yes, exactly. If you're doing the work as well, you can't lead. Take care of yourself. Critical. Really, really critical. And I think sometimes as leaders, we forget, and I know this is my weakest link, which I'll come to in 2 slides time. So take care of yourself, and more on that in a moment. And roll up your sleeves. As a leader, never be afraid to unpack boxes, go and clean the toilet if it needs cleaning, because it's teamwork. And it's culture. And if you go, oh no, I don't do that, then why should anyone else do it? So,
Yeah, I mean that's about knowing a little bit about a lot of stuff, isn't it? Yeah,
yes.
be at least interested in terms of the process. You haven't got to be able to, know the minutiae, but
No.
certainly be interested in people, isn't it? And ask them their opinions.
Yes.
Claire, we've got a few questions that have come in. Is
Okay.
this a natural place to maybe answer a couple?
Let's do it.
Right, Susanna with a Z, who is from Slovakia.
Oh, hello, Susanna
Hey,
from Slovakia.
hello. Right. So she's saying, how do you suggest going about it when when people say I don't know, when you've got other people around you that are very ego driven and just want to get one over on you, she said, if you know what I mean. So I think what she's asking there is,
Yes.
how do you manage the sort of the other egos perhaps around the board table when everyone's looking at you and you don't know the answer? How do you deal with the sort of the peer pressure, I guess?
Yes, I guess a little bit, and I absolutely, Susanna, I completely hear you. I think that's having a sense of belief in yourself and being truthful to yourself. Because I think what's the worst thing that you could happen? You fluff and nonsense in as a point to pretend you're faking it till you're making it, and you will be found out. And that's a far worse feeling than going, hey, I don't know, but maybe someone around the table knows. Does anyone have any ideas? And I think that's something about having confidence in your own ability, but also being comfortable with other people's egos, other people's pride, and going, okay, that's the way they deal with leadership, and they might be happy that they've got one over you on you, but it's not actually getting one over on you because you've been very truthful and honest to say, I don't know. And that takes courage, and that takes some sense of risk. And you're also being incredibly authentic and having integrity by not pretending.
Yeah, I think we can probably dive really quite deeply into the
Yes.
psychology of people with egos and why they would challenge you, because ultimately they probably have lots of insecurities
Yeah,
themselves.
and
And
yes, and actually, Miles, that's a really good point. Do remember, and this is something, that amygdala theory of the iceberg. You can only see what's on top. You can't see what's going on underneath the surface. And of course, most of the behaviors we receive or we give, be it, and I mean behaviors that perhaps we're not so proud of, are usually a result of something going on underneath the surface.
yeah,
So, ego tends to play out when people aren't confident, or people are feeling fear of something. And so your natural, it's that fight or flight. Your natural mode is ego, pride will help me win this. It doesn't ultimately. But I always think when I receive a bad behavior, or what I consider bad behavior, or even when I give it, and of course, there are times when, I feel pressure or something's going on maybe in my personal life that can impact work. I try not to, but you're human and these things happen. It's to reflect on it and go, so why did I react like that? Or why did they possibly react like that? To have the conversation afterwards to go, hey, are you okay? Yeah.
perfect. I'll save the next question for the next interlude, Claire.
Okay, so now let's a little bit more deeper into these things. We've only got 2 more slides, and then we can go wang on in your questions. So it's not about being in charge. It's rather about taking care of those in your charge. So I know, and I think Noreen probably can attest to this, I've been asked as CEO what my job was. I don't like the term CEO, actually. I think Simon Sinek's CVO's Chief Visionary Officer is much more appropriate for a CEO role. But anyway, that's a whole other point. But I've been asked a number of times, what is my role as the CEO? I always used to say, it's taking care of people. That's what I do. And that to me is what the art of good leadership is. So hold great value in culture and people, and take responsibility for the people in your charge. Be empathetic and show vulnerability. Going back to not having all the answers, having some understanding of where people may be, what's going on in the world. And I think during COVID, we really needed to understand, people's emotions, because we were all going through something completely crazy. And so that empathy and that vulnerability, allow them to be seen, because it allows others to see it and others to feel safe when they show it. Support people to achieve their greatness, because that's why I get out of bed in the morning. And I think that's what our job is as leaders. It's not about you, it's about them. Be honest to yourself and those around you. You do not have to have all the answers. As I said, do not play games. So a little bit going back to Susanna's question about ego, and there's only one version of you. So what you're seeing with me today is what you'll see when I'm singing karaoke, which I also like to do, or I'm dancing on a stage somewhere, or I'm doing Lego with my son, or I'm climbing on a rope park, which I just got over my fear of heights on a rope park. Not the place I would recommend to get over your fear of heights, but anyway, it's a whole other story. But there's only one version of you. Please don't pretend to be anything else other than yourself, because it is exhausting to do so. Be courageous.
Sorry, I was going to say, a lot of people will read like a management book where it says, you must not show weakness. You should lead with the stick, not the carrot. And it's very, very rarely successful.
It's exhausting. And actually, one thing on vulnerability, if you haven't seen it, the Brené Brown, it's a clip from quite some time ago about vulnerability. I think the best, TED talk on vulnerability. So go look it up, because it is to the point and beautiful. Be courageous, take risks, non-hierarchical, get your hands dirty. Now, I always live in a space where I'm very non-hierarchical. As I said, if I need the toilet needs cleaning, I'll go clean the bloody toilet. But what I would say is, and this has been a little bit to my detriment sometimes, I do remember asking a junior social media manager, we'd lost the senior social media strategy. So I said, social media manager, so we lost the senior. So I said to the junior, hey, you go and write the strategy and we'll look at it in 2 weeks. Well, the poor girl ran off and
had a heart attack.
Yes, and eventually she sort of plucked up the courage to go, I need some help. And I was like, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. So sometimes my non-hierarchical thinking, I believe everyone can do everything. And I firmly believe that if you're in that job, the junior social media manager is a better social media manager than I am. Mm-hmm. That's because, and that's why she's in that job. So I go, well, I'm empowering you to do that job. And sometimes I do forget to go, hey, I'm empowering you, but let me help you.
Yeah.
So that's, in my non-hierarchical things, that sometimes can be a little bit of a detriment to me. The other thing I would definitely say is ask for feedback. I think we're all happy to give feedback, but are we always happy to receive it? Not always. So ask for feedback, because only then will you really truly know, was it good? Was it pretty ugly? Could it be better? And how can you learn? And I think that is important. And finally, before my final slide, it's really the whole art of leadership is leading by example. I once had a friend say to me, actually, it was the friend with the 2 ears and the mouth, say to me, you are at your, I used to wear really high heels at Adidas. In fact, the Neo people on the thing will remember. So I used to clip-clop down the corridor and you could hear me coming, but I was kind of running everywhere. And he said to me, you know something, you are at your best when you glide. Walk slowly, interpretation. Because the minute you start clip-clopping, everybody starts clip-clopping behind you. Mm-hmm. And it really helped me understand that the weight of my leadership and the example I set in my leadership is the example that I enable others to follow exactly that.
Yeah,
and
I guess it echoes in that example, like what you wear, how you show up, I suppose. Everything you are doing in terms of you, the way in which you present yourself, the way in which you deliver your messages, the way you communicate,
Yeah.
all of that stuff is very important.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really about what you wear, because I really don't care about that. People don't have to come into work in high heels, for example, to clip clop with me. But what I mean is, in terms of, if I run, everybody runs.
Yes.
If I glide, everybody glides. And it's to really learn the impact of your leadership. The behaviors you show will be picked up and followed and acted upon, and they will become the norm of the company, and thus the culture will live through the behaviors that the leader shows.
Good point.
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify that you do not have to turn up in high heels just because Claire does. Those days are well and truly gone, by the way, because I live in Berlin and walk everywhere, so you cannot wear heels on the streets here. So finally, this is my final piece of wisdom, should we say, and these are your energy batteries. So we have 4 energy batteries, would you believe? So there's quadruple A's, let's call them. And you are only as strong as your weakest axis, and this goes back to this whole taking care of yourself piece. You've got the EQ, the emotional skills, the SQ, the inspirational skills, that the values, the drivers. You've got the rational, the analytical, the smart, the expertise, and then we've got the physical skills. Now, a 3-legged stool doesn't really work so well as a 4, or a 3-legged table doesn't really stand up very well. So we need 4 things to make it stand, and these are the 4 energy batteries. And taking care of yourself, you said to me, Mars, the other day, it's a bit like, on a plane when the oxygen masks fall down and you have to put your own oxygen mask on first and then sort your kids out. Yep. It's kind of that. If you're not taking care of yourself, your energy batteries are out of sync. So that whole physical self-care is really critical. And that's all I have for you.
Aneshi. Well,
I'm going to cut. Do you mind if I come out of the? I'm going to.
Of course. Of course, and I will help us out with my very technical graphics.
I just now need to work out how to stop sharing, but you just give me.
You have.
I've got it. Yeah.
I've done that for you. Right.
Okay.
Super. Very inspiring and very interesting. Thank you so much indeed, Claire. We have had a few questions in the chat. If you do have any questions that arrive from that, please pop them in the chat and we shall get to them now. So Fraser has a question for us. He says, if you work in a company which does not have a vision, mission, or North Star, they don't know where they're heading. Mm-hmm. Do you think that in itself it's justification for moving and developing your career elsewhere? So it sounds to me like Fraser works in a company where perhaps they don't have the
I do mentor. I'm a part of the mentor club, and I do mentoring. And I actually had a conversation with a lady about this just last week, actually. So I think, Fraser, what's really, there's an opportunity for you to go and speak to the management team. I don't know where you are in the organization, but to go and say, hey, maybe ask around, maybe it's missed, maybe there was one and it's out of date, but to go and sort of, does everybody know where we're heading? There's no harm in, a lower level manager going up to the head of the company and going, hey, are we all clear what we're doing, why we get out of bed in the morning? Is there an opportunity here? Because it definitely changes the culture. So if you try that and it doesn't work, and actually this was a little bit my feedback to the lady I was working with last week, to say, if it's not something they really want to perhaps endeavor to go down that path, maybe this is not the place for you. But I would say, Fraser, going back and understanding your why you get out of bed in the morning, will also enable you to understand if this is the right company for you or not.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Claire. It's been my experience as well that maybe there is a vision and a mission, But the senior managers, they've written it and shoved it in a drawer and didn't think it was for sharing with everybody else.
Yes,
So,
can also be exactly. So, investigate if there has been one, was one, is one, and then go and say, hey, why don't we do this?
Susanna asked the question earlier. She said, thank you. She feels like a lot of people don't, the chat just moved. A lot of people don't want to be authentic in her experience. And I think that comes back to what we were saying earlier about they've got a lot going on maybe in their life as well, right?
It's fear of failure, it's insecurity, but don't let that change your behavior.
And stupid, myths like fake it till you make it type thing, isn't it? Like these sort of popular culture things affect people too.
Yeah. These things that the young'uns speak of.
Yeah, yeah, these youngsters. Noreen had to step out, unfortunately.
Yes, I saw that. But I'm going to see her on Friday, so that's all good.
But she says here, Claire, that in her experience, you were such a role model. So just a little testimonial for you here. And Philip's saying it's good to have a mentor. Like a person who, like the person who suggested guiding and commenting, and yeah, I think that Philip is asking, how do you deal with mentoring? What's your approach to mentoring?
So I think obviously it's really helpful for companies to have a mentor program, but of course not all companies are big enough to do so, or in the situation to do so. And I think, there's no harm in going finding your own mentors. And I, over the years, have found people that, networking, I think, is a really important part of your job in leadership, in your professional life, to go and, learn new skills, see what's out there, see who's available. Understanding areas that you want to develop, I think, is a really critical before you go and find a mentor. And then, go have coffees with people and say, hey, I've got this challenge in my development, or something I really want to learn about. How would you feel about mentoring me? That's how I used to do it myself as I was learning and growing. And then also how people have done it with me. Say, hey, you're in a leadership position. Let's go for coffee, and I want to hear your story, and maybe you can help me with this situation. So never be afraid to go and ask people for some help. People love to impart their wisdom, and so people will feel so special and honored that I know I always did, when people came and said, hey, I'd love to have half an hour with you to learn something. So just bite the bullet and go and ask. And if there isn't a mentorship program, sorry, Mars, if there isn't a mentorship program at your work, there's an opportunity, right?
Yeah. Create one, suggest one.
Yeah.
I think as well, if you're looking for a coach or a mentor, there are so many coaches out there now. And not all coaches are equal. But one of the acid tests is to ask the coach or the mentor who their coach or mentor is. That will tell you whether or not they take it seriously, because you should definitely have one. Right, so Fraser says, thank you very much, Claire. He's tried to suggest, he's raised it for the clear mission, and there are no positive signs of change. So he is going to review his why and his next steps. This is great news, Fraser. I suggest you put all your efforts into that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Find a company that is going to have a clear direction. And
I've just seen Gary.
Last year, we're laughing because one of our old colleagues here, Gary Swan. Oh, yeah.
Gary, how are you?
Oh, well, I met up with Gary last year, and Ian, and and Mark. We had a lovely lunch.
I remember you sending me a picture. Yeah.
Yeah, we did indeed. Oh, they were the good old days. Good, and he hasn't changed a bit. Still can't understand a word he says.
I was going to try and do a Scottish accent, then I thought, no, we're live.
Let's not do that.
That'll
definitely one of the things on your list of not to do.
Yes, do not.
So,
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, this has been fantastic, Claire. I think that you've imparted some great pearls of wisdom. We held on to our viewers throughout the whole session. We've still got 21 people online live at the moment. Another question has come. Yeah. He said he's all good, old Gary.
I think you
Right,
said you had a couple of questions that are written in earlier.
Sorry, you're absolutely right. I do, Claire. So another Claire sent me a message and said, do you have any advice for a woman in a leadership role, specifically for a woman going into Claire's going into a leadership role, and she's like, what advice can you give her?
Yeah. So I think it goes back to being yourself and being authentic, and the integrity that you hold, and keeping true to your values, actually. And I think it is scary, because I've been in leadership, I was in a leadership position at Adidas where I think I was one of sort of 16 men at one point. And it's a very difficult situation to be in. But don't let it deter you. I think going back to that authentic integrity, holding on to your values and being yourself are really what you can help drive you. And actually the benefit you bring from giving a different perspective by being a female in a more male environment is super, super valuable. I mean, 51% of our, oh, hello, Alex. Oh, beautiful Alex. 51% of the population are female, and yet we don't have that in leadership ratio, but, it's going to come.
Yeah, you haven't got to try and be a man, have you? Even if it's a male,
be yourself.
You've got to be yourself.
Indeed.
Okay, and Sarah, she is asking, what is your one top tip that you would give?
Actually, I've got two.
Oh,
maybe three.
No, you could have two. You could have three. Go on.
Okay. So first of all is look after yourself. Right, we forget it. It goes last of the list. It's my weak spot. I know it myself. I'm usually on number 20 of a list of 19 other things. Look after yourself, first thing. Second thing is drink lots of water, because we forget to hydrate.
We do.
I know it's a very motherly, practical thing, but drink lots of water. And the last thing is self-reflection. Don't forget to reflect and think about your actions, why you acted like you did, why someone else maybe acted like they did, because there's a learning in there. And I don't think we always give ourselves the time. And it's scary to look inside sometimes, to peel back that onion. But don't be afraid to do it.
No, that last point, it's making time for it. It's booking it out in your diary, making sure that you allow yourself the space.
And that sort of self-awareness is so important in leadership.
100%. Okay, well, Jens, she says thank you. She needs to shoot as well, but great.
It's a he, Jens. Hello, Jens.
Apologies. That's the issue with the chat, not seeing a little icon or a face or anything there. But definitely loads of reminders and reminding them how to interact with people. And Alexandra, she's saying she needs to go too, but she
Lovely,
thanks
Alex.
And there's a LinkedIn user. We don't know who this person is. They're anonymous, but they say 3 great pieces of advice there and a little emoji. So everyone's sending their love, Claire.
Thank you.
So, look, thank you all very much indeed for joining us live on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Claire. Fraser has enjoyed it as well. Really useful session. He needs to leave now. That's all right. It's okay to leave.
Yeah. Go get about your day and have wonderful days.
And this will be kept on the internet for time immemorial on my resources section of my website. If you are interested in hearing more about leadership, then please get in touch with Claire. All her details are on the screen. Even though she lives in Berlin, she operates worldwide with the use
Indeed, I do.
These days. So, Claire, thank you so much indeed. Maybe we'll come back and we'll do the other part of leadership.
Why not?
Some stage in the future.
We can do values and purpose and all that chisel, for sure.
I think we should. I think we should.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Miles, and thank you very much for listening, everybody. I've really enjoyed the session. Thank you.
Brilliant. And I don't know how we're going to sign this off. Ta-ta for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love to everybody.
There we go. Love to everybody. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Bye.